And welcome, everyone, to our Bleacher Report. Andy Katz, that's me, bracket prediction, built by Home Depot. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through the entire March Madness bracket that was unveiled on CBS at 6 o'clock Eastern Time. We're going to start with the East bracket in your upper left, down to the West, then over to the South bracket, and to the Midwest. And so I'm going to take us through each round. Of course, you're going to hold me to this. I'm going to predict each round, give you a little reason why as we go along. So we will start in the East bracket with the number one team, the number one overall seed, the UConn Huskies. They will take on Stetson. That's an easy one. These games will be in Brooklyn. The Huskies that just won the Big East tournament title and the regular season, I have UConn advancing over into the second round. The 8-9 matchup, Florida Atlantic and Northwestern. Florida Atlantic played in the Final Four last year. I'm a little bit surprised that they were an 8th seed. They did not get to the American Conference title game. They kind of fumbled their way a little bit down the stretch, yet they were rewarded with an 8th seed. Their biggest win of the season was that neutral site win over Arizona in Las Vegas. And they get Northwestern, which had basically double-digit number of quad 1, quad 2 wins, had a great percentage. The unfortunate thing for Northwestern is they're not the same team here down the stretch without Tiberi and Matt Nicholson, but they do have Boo Buie, who I think is an All-American, first-team consensus, all Big Ten, and they play their tails off. Now, they also lost to Wisconsin in the Big Ten quarterfinals, where I am right now, actually in Minneapolis. So it's a good 8-9 matchup. But Boo Buie is something special, and FAU does not have an answer for him at the point guard position. FAU, I think, will meet them defensively. This will be a grinder game. This is going to be a low-scoring game, but I like Northwestern to advance in Brooklyn and get to that second round. By the way, FAU did get to the Final Four through Madison Square Garden, so this is the second time in a row they'll be playing the NCAA tournament in the New York area. All right, so then you've got San Diego State taking on UAB. These games will be in Spokane, and Auburn-Yale. The Aztecs lost a real tough game to New Mexico in the Mountain West Conference tournament title game in Las Vegas. UAB on Sunday won really a tremendous run by Andy Kennedy as they took out Temple to win the American. So as you see right there, you got two American teams, FAU the 8th seed, UAB the 12th. As hot as UAB is right now, I like the Aztecs. I don't think UAB will have an answer for Jaden Ledee. So I like San Diego State advancing to the second round. Remember, they also were a Final Four team last year. So you got two Final Four teams in this bracket with a third Final Four team above them, UConn. So 3 of the 4 Final Four teams in the East from a year ago. Miami, of course, was the 4th. They did not make it this year. Auburn-Yale, well, the Tigers just won the SEC tournament in Nashville on Sunday over Florida. Yale with an unbelievable win over Brown. Last-second buzzer beater to knock off Brown in the Ivy League title on Sunday. But Auburn's defense and their ability to get up and down, I think it's going to be too much for Yale. I like Auburn to advance for a 4-5 matchup in the second round. Continuing down there, BYU and Duquesne. BYU had a smooth transition in the Big 12 going from the WCC. Duquesne on Sunday won the A-10 over VCU. Keith Dambrod is the head coach. He's been there quite a while. Also, before that was in Akron. He was LeBron James' high school coach. But, again, Duquesne, hot late. BYU's been pretty consistent, and they can shoot the ball extremely well from the perimeter. I like BYU to advance to the second round. Illinois, Morehead State. Morehead won the Ohio Valley. Illinois, who I just witnessed Sunday in Minneapolis, win the Big Ten tournament. Terrence Shannon Jr., Marcus Domask, they can score in bunches. Terrence Shannon, 2 straight days, scored over 70 points, 100 over the 3 days. And Illinois' defense tightened up. The big thing with the Illini is when they give the full effort, they can win, beat anybody, including anyone in this bracket. But they did not the first 3 halves of the tournament in Minnesota, and then they turned it on the last 2.5 halves. So I like Illinois to advance as the 3 seed. Further down here, we've got in, again, this is also in Spokane. We've got this is in Omaha. that'd be close for Washington State. So we got Washington State against Drake, and then the 2 seed here, Iowa State against South Dakota State. These games are in Omaha. So Washington State, Kyle Smith did a great job, Coach of the Year in the Pac-12, got to the semis in the Pac-12 tournament. Drake, Tucker DeVries, outstanding player, big-time scorer, coached by his father, Darren DeVries, won the Valley tournament by beating Indiana State. I like Drake here. So this is my first double-digit seed upset where I'm going with Drake to knock off Washington State. Iowa State drilled Houston in the Big 12 tournament title game. South Dakota State won the Summit, but Iowa State's defense and the way in which they play with such energy and passion every possession, I think they're going to be too much for South Dakota State. I like Iowa State to advance. So that's your second round. Let's go back up to the top. UConn Northwestern. The problem for the Wildcats is they don't have an answer for Donovan Clingan. UConn advances. San Diego State Auburn. I think this is going to be an absolute grind. And the Tigers are going to have to defend the best they've ever defended because San Diego State's going to be pushing right at them. Now, the Aztecs not a great offensive team, but they're going to be attacking constantly. So Auburn's going to have to defend without fouling. But I think they can. I think Auburn's offense is going to be a little bit too much as well as the Aztecs defend. I like Bruce Pearl's Auburn Tigers to get to Boston to take on UConn. Down below, again, I don't think BYU can defend Illinois, and so I think Illinois will advance. Drake, Iowa State. It's kind of a shame. They don't play anymore in the state of Iowa. Drake is in Des Moines, Iowa State in Ames. So this will be a very highly watched game in the state of Iowa. But again, I don't think Drake's defense can handle the aggressiveness of Iowa State offensively. I like Iowa State. So we got a 2-3, 1-4. So, okay, you got some chalk there. Yes, I do, in this bracket for the most part. And I'm going to continue to do so for the most part. I like Illinois over Iowa State. Just love the way the Illini are playing right now. Taking on UConn, which I think will take out Auburn. These games will be in Boston. It'll be a de facto home game for the Huskies. And because of that, and because of the way they play, a UConn-Illinois battle, by the way, will be an absolute war. I mean, those two teams are going to go at it. It's going to be incredibly intense. But in a late possession game, I like UConn to get out of the East, get back to the Final Four with a chance to win back-to-back championships for the first time since Florida did it in 06-07. So there's your East bracket. You can already hear a lot of squawking that I don't have many upsets. Only have technically 2. That's fine. But I do think the East was sort of the easiest to predict. Now let's go down to the West, where North Carolina, despite losing on Saturday in the ACC title game to NC State, still got the number 1 seed. They'll take on Howard Wagner. By the way, I do like Howard to win that game. But I think then they will lose to North Carolina, and that will be in Charlotte. Then you got Mississippi State, Michigan State. Mississippi State has played very well down the stretch. Chris Jans getting the Bulldogs into the NCAA tournament yet again. Tom Izzo's Spartans have never reached their potential this season. The 5 spots have been a problem for them. Their guard play has been inconsistent. They gave Purdue a good game, not able to get over the hump. But I do like Michigan State in this opportunity here. Get a week to prep. I think Izzo will get it done, and these guys will rise to the occasion and at least get 1 win in the NCAA tournament. St. Mary's Grand Canyon. I think this is a 5-12 where a lot of people are going to be intrigued to go with the Lopes. I don't think this team's as good as they were a year ago when they got to the NCAA tournament. St. Mary's, don't forget, did win the WCC. Randy Bennett has done an exceptional job with this group. They are never easy to prepare for. Grand Canyon is going to want to run. St. Mary's not going to let them. And I think St. Mary's wins. And these games, by the way, are in Spokane, which I think is a huge advantage to the Gales. Now you got 2 teams from the Southeast playing in Spokane, Alabama and Charleston. I love the backcourt of Alabama, led by Mark Sears. I think they've just got too much. I don't care where this game is played. I think Alabama beats Charleston. All right, so right there, one upset in the 8-9. Not really an upset, fine. Let's go further down. Clemson, New Mexico. I don't like the way Clemson has been playing down the stretch. Sort of limping into the NCAA tournament. The Lobos are hot. They clearly were one of the last teams in. They got in by winning the Mountain West Conference tournament. They beat, along the way, Air Force, Boise, Colorado State, and then San Diego State. Beat basically all the best teams in the league except for Nevada and Utah State down the stretch, but they almost beat Utah State in Logan. I like the Lobos. Love their backcourt of Dent, House, and Mashburn, Toppin, and Washington. I think they have too many weapons for Clemson. I think New Mexico gets there. Baylor, Colgate. Matt Engel has always done a great job with that team. They can shoot the basketball well. Baylor's guards are exceptional. So I like Baylor there in a 3-14. Dayton, Nevada. I don't like the way Dayton's been playing down the stretch. They have essentially, again, the 7 seed, I think Dayton could have been much higher than that. They didn't beat the best teams down the stretch. They didn't get to the semis of the A-10 tournament. They got out early. So, I thought they were going to be even lower than this. Nevada, Steve Alford, unlike a year ago when he got into the first 4 and got embarrassed, he's not going to get embarrassed here. They got a team that's already won a tournament. I know it was in Hawaii in the Diamond Head Classic, but they've got a lot of momentum. And I love the way they're playing. I like Nevada here in a 7-10 upset to move on. Arizona, Long Beach State. Arizona lost to a hot Oregon in the Pac-12 tournament. And they've been an interesting team because out of league, yes, they lost to Purdue and FAU, but they've also had some really good wins. They obliterated Wisconsin earlier in the year. This is an Arizona team that they won at Duke right off the bat in November. They had a little bit of a skid in the middle of the part of the schedule. They did lose to Stanford and Wazoo twice. Stanford once, Wazoo twice. But Long Beach State's just basically, they had a great run in the Big West tournament. Unbelievable story, Dan Munson, who was fired and still ended up getting the 49ers into the NCAA tournament. He's familiar with Arizona, but I don't see them getting it done. I like Arizona advancing. So, right off the bat in the second round, we've got a 9, an 11, and a 10 advancing. Let's go up to the top. UNC Michigan State. This is an issue where the lack of post scoring, I think, will bother the Spartans. So, I like Carolina leaning on Baycott and Ingram to take out Michigan State and advance to the Sweet 16 in Los Angeles, where they will take on Alabama. I think the guard play will be too strong for Alabama, for St. Mary's. Excuse me, too strong for St. Mary's. So I like Alabama, even though this will be in Spokane. Tough draw for the Tide. I like Alabama to advance and take on Carolina in L.A. New Mexico, Baylor. This is going to be a guard's dream. Great guard play for really both schools here. But I just think the momentum is going to continue for the Lobos. Richard Pitino's done an outstanding job resetting the season after the disappointing home loss to Air Force. And I think New Mexico gets it. I think the 11th-seeded Lobos get to Los Angeles in the Sweet 16, where they will take on not their Mountain West Conference foe in Nevada, but Arizona. Arizona, their front court, Omar Ballo, is going to be a little too much for the Wolfpack. And so here we go. In L.A., we got a 1 of 4, 2 and an 11. You've got, in the bottom part of your bracket, 2 Western teams, Southwest teams in L.A. Top part, 2 Mid-Atlantic to Southeast teams. I like Carolina here to advance past Alabama. Getting close to a return to the Final Four after playing for the national championship just 2 years ago. Not last year, not even making it. Arizona, New Mexico. This is where I think the Cinderella run ends. I just think the interior play from Arizona will be a little bit too much, even though Nelly Joseph is a live body. I mean, he can really just fly all over the court. I like Arizona after a terribly disappointing season last year to lose, or I should say March Madness, good regular season, because they were 1 seed. They were a 2 seed. And they lost to 15 Princeton, so they were 2 last year. So it's a little redemption here. Get back. They redid the roster. Caleb Love has been exceptional. So here's what we get. We get Caleb Love versus R.J. Davis. Okay? R.J. Davis, who was the player of the year in the ACC. Caleb Love, player of the year in the Pac-12. They were teammates a year ago. What a great storyline in Los Angeles. And I think Arizona wins. I think Arizona in L.A. gets to the Final Four. Tommy Lloyd thought he was going to get to the Final Four a year ago. Almost, this would be year 3, if I'm not mistaken. Really believed they were going to get there a year ago. And they lost in the first round. So here they are, getting to the Final Four to take on UConn. All right, so now let's go to the upper right. This is the South bracket, where the number 1 seed is Houston. Houston will take on Longwood. The Cougars, defensively, I think they're the best team in the country. I mean, the analytics put them up there, but the way they play defensively, just how hard they play, I think puts them as one of the favorites. These games are in Memphis. They did lose to Iowa State. Iowa State had their number. They won 2 or 3. All right, Nebraska A&M. Weird storyline here is that the athletic director, Trev Alberts, shockingly left Nebraska to go to A&M. Shocked everyone in Lincoln. He's not playing, but it is an interesting subplot here. A&M got hot late. It's a good wins early. It's weird. Buzz Williams' teams at Texas A&M have done this where they have some bad middles that have really hurt them. But I love the way the Huskers are playing. Love the way they're shooting the basketball. Had a great win when they were here over Indiana in Minnesota, where I am. And so I like Fred Hoiberg's Nebraska Cornhuskers to beat A&M and advance to play Houston. Then in Brooklyn, Wisconsin, James Madison. Everyone's going to want to pick this 12-5 upset. James Madison won its league, beat Michigan State early in the season. But I've seen a different Wisconsin team in the last week. At Purdue, even though they lost, and then here at the Big Ten tournament, getting to the title game and almost beating Illinois. They're scoring better. Chucky Hepburn's playing at a high level, so is A.J. Storr. So I like the Badgers. A lot of people are going to pick James Madison, but I like Wisconsin to advance. Then you've got Duke and Vermont. Vermont won 3rd straight year. They won the America East, going against a Duke team that really disappointed down the stretch. Lost at North Carolina, lost in the ACC tournament in the quarters to NC State. But they'll beat Vermont. There's just too much firepower with Duke, especially inside with Kyle Filipowski. Texas Tech, NC State. Grant McCaslin did a great job of resetting that team because they were struggling early. NC State, Kevin Keatts, 5 games in 5 days. It's unheard of. And they got the ACC title. It's unprecedented, but I think they run out of steam here. By the way, these games will be in Pittsburgh. And I like Texas Tech to advance. Then you got Kentucky, Oakland. Great deal for Greg Kampe to be in the NCAA tournament. Been there for 40 years. I love the Wildcats. I know they didn't win the SEC title, whether regular season or tournament, but Reed Shepherd's going to be a star in this NCAA tournament. Antonio Reeves, Rob Dillingham. I mean, they got some talent. And I think they get it going here, and they beat Oakland. Florida, Boise State, Colorado. Kind of surprising that Boise State was in the play-in. Colorado, once they lost to Oregon, I thought they might be. Florida's sort of under the radar and had a really solid season, played in the SEC title game. But here's where I'm going to pick an upset. And these games are in Indy. I think Colorado beats Boise, and I think Colorado beats Florida. Then the bottom part, Marquette, Western Kentucky. Marquette, despite no Tyler Kolek, got to the Big East title game and lost to UConn. So clearly, they are not a one-man's team. So they're going to beat Western Kentucky and advance to play Colorado. So now let's go to the top. Staying in Memphis, Houston, Nebraska. I think Houston just D's up Nebraska on the three-point line, doesn't let them get 10, 11, 12 threes. Houston wins. In Boston, I think Wisconsin beats Duke. I think the Badgers' ability to match them on the perimeter, to be physical, Steve Krall is playing very well, and I think he can match up with Filipowski. Can they deal with Mark Mitchell? That's the question. But I like the Badgers with a little minor upset here in a 5-4 matchup, advancing to Dallas. Then in Pittsburgh, Texas Tech, Kentucky, I think there's too much firepower from Kentucky. Kentucky beats Texas Tech. They advance. Colorado taking on Marquette. Again, it's very difficult for a team to win a first four, win a first round, and then win a second round. And I'm hoping by then that Tyler Kolek is playing. If he isn't playing already, I think he will. And Marquette advances. So now we move to Dallas. Kentucky Marquette's a rematch from an 0-3 Final Four game. Houston against Wisconsin. I think Houston's defense will be just too much for the Badgers. I like Houston advancing in Dallas. And then the same, I think the offense is going to be a little bit too much for Marquette. I like Kentucky over Marquette. And here is where, so Kentucky advances to play Houston. And all the squawking about John Calipari can't get back to the Final Four. I think he gets there. I think in Dallas, he takes down Kelvin Sampson and the Houston Cougars, and Kentucky gets to the Final Four. Reed Sheppard gets there like his dad, Jeff Sheppard, did. As a 3 seed, Kentucky advances. So we've got Kentucky out of the South, UConn out of the East, Arizona out of the West. Who will come out of the Midwest? Top seed is Purdue. These games will be in Indy. They did lose in the semis to Wisconsin. Braden Smith will have time to get fully healthy. You got Montana State, Grambling State. I think you're going to see Montana State win, and then Purdue take care of the Big Sky champ. Utah State, TCU. Interesting matchup. Utah State didn't have the tournament title run it wanted after winning the regular season of the Mountain West Conference. TCU sort of been a little bit under the radar. They've got some great wins, and I think this is where Utah State's sort of Cinderella season with a completely new roster changes, and the Horned Frogs advance with a 9/8 winner, which, by the way, if I'm not mistaken here, as I pause, this would be 3 of the 4 9/8. I go with the 9 over the 8, for the record. All right, Gonzaga taking on McNeese and Kansas Samford in Salt Lake City. Again, this is another 12-5 everyone's going to pick. Will Wade, the head coach, has got McNeese playing great. Shahada Wells, former TCU player, going against the Zags, who lost to St. Mary's. But this team's going to want to run, and so will the Zags. And I like the Zags in Salt Lake City, where they're going to have a ton of fans. I think Gonzaga advances. Here's the upset. I don't like the mojo right now with Kansas. We don't know about Hunter Dickinson or Kevin McCullough Jr., and without them, they are not the same basketball team. Samford, hot team. You want a 4-13. Kansas is ripe to be beaten in the first round. I go with Samford. So there's your major upset in the Midwest bracket. Bottom part of the bracket, we go to South Carolina taking on Oregon. These games are in Pittsburgh. And Creighton, Akron. Lamont Paris, SEC Coach of the Year, did a great job with the Gamecocks. But Dana Altman is a tournament coach, wins the Pac-12 tournament. He has done really well in the NCAA tournament. I like the Ducks and Folly Dante. There's no match for him here. So I like Oregon advancing. Right off the bat, you got a 13-11 getting to the second round. Creighton and Akron, okay? Akron won the MAC in a fluke manner. Felt awful for Kent State. They were up one, intentional foul. They didn't mean to. Akron wins on free throws. But Creighton's got an offense that can go at a high clip, and I also got Ryan Kalkbrenner, who's a rim protector. I like the Blue Jays advancing. Then the last group of games are in Charlotte. Texas taking on Colorado State, Virginia. The winner of that game, I actually like Colorado State to take out Virginia. In Dayton, take it on Texas. But then I like Texas advancing in Charlotte. Tennessee against St. Peter's. I don't see the Peacocks having a magical run this time. So the Vols with Dalton Connect advance. All right, now let's go up. Second round games in Indy at the top. Purdue over TCU. They have no answer for Zach Edey. Gonzaga, Samford, and Salt Lake City. It's going to be a de facto home game for the Zags. They advance to Detroit. Oregon against Creighton and Pittsburgh. This is going to be unbelievable. Dante versus Kalkbrenner. What a matchup inside. But Dante is a freak athlete, and I think Kalkbrenner is going to have some problems with him. I like Oregon advancing to the Sweet 16. Texas taking on Tennessee. How about Rick Barnes against his old team, where he essentially got pushed out, fired, whatever you want to say. They stopped. They were like, "You're done." And a day, literally 24 hours later, he's head coach of Tennessee. He's done a marvelous job with the Vols. And I think he beats his old team, his good friend Rodney Terry, and Tennessee advances to the Sweet 16 in Detroit. So you've got Purdue, Gonzaga, Oregon, and Tennessee. We've seen Purdue Gonzaga before in the first round in the Maui Invitational, relocated in Honolulu. I was there. And Gonzaga, no answer for Zach Edey. Then they have no answer in March. Purdue advances in Detroit. Oregon, Tennessee. I think this is when the magical run for the Ducks ends. I like Dalton Connect to get past the Ducks, to get to the Elite Eight. And hey, we got another rematch, or another team, I should say. Tennessee ended up losing to Kansas in Maui, relocated to Honolulu. And Purdue, when Purdue beat, yes, that's right, I'm sorry. Purdue beat Gonzaga, then in a grinder, Tennessee, and then they knocked off Marquette to win that title. So we got some rematches here. And they, as much as I think Dalton Connect will be a problem for Purdue, I like the Boilermakers. I think Zach Edey is going to step up as the player of the year. So Purdue gets to the Final Four. Purdue does what Virginia did in 2018-19. Lose in the first round, get back to the Final Four. Question is, can they complete the entire run? That's the question. UConn versus Arizona on the left side of your screen. Stephon Castle and Donovan Clingan, but I think the X factor is going to be Cam Spencer. He's going to make shots in what I think will be a great high-level game. I think UConn advances to the national championship game. And they've had great success, even though this is going to be in Phoenix, Arizona, Tucson to Phoenix, 2 hours. They're going to be like the home team. But I just love UConn's toughness. I do. I think they will rise to the challenge in the face of being semi on the road at the Final Four. Kentucky, Purdue. Again, I think this is where Edey rises. And I think we get a UConn-Purdue matchup. This is the game that we've been wanting all season long. They've been the two best teams, the two most consistent teams. And I think we're going to get the matchup. I hope I'm right here because this is the game I think we all want to see. And the question then is, does Purdue complete the full comeback from first-round loss to winning the title, which is exactly what Virginia did 2018, 2019. I can't go there. Maybe we'll redo this at some point if someone loses along the way. But the way UConn has played and risen in the big moments, and they continue to do so, and it was basically for everyone to see in the Big East tournament in New York, I think UConn wins it, wins back-to-back championships, first time since Florida did it in 06-07. Dan Hurley on his way to the Hall of Fame if he wins 2 national championships. If we get this Final Four, last year we had good games. We had some unfamiliar names. But if we get this one, where we get a Kentucky, Purdue, UConn, Arizona in Phoenix, I think a lot of people are going to be really, really pleased with the outcomes of that. So that's the bracket. You can hold me to it. See how I do. Before we go, we've got a new segment here. It is called How to March Madness, built by Home Depot. So your How to March Madness, built by Home Depot. And we've got 5 facts that are going to come up on your screen momentarily. Essentially, all about the bracket. We're holding off here because we're making you soak in that bracket there. All right. So, 5 key facts about March Madness. A 15 seed has beaten a 2 seed in 3 consecutive tournaments. Pause right there, please. The question, of course, is, will it happen this time? So I just want to answer this. Iowa State against South Dakota State, I don't see it. Arizona Long Beach State, I don't see it. Marquette Western Kentucky, I don't see it. Tennessee St. Peter's, I don't. All right, I could be wrong. I think that streak's going to end. So that's fact 1. Fact 2, please. There has only been one tournament where 7 seeds were swept by 10 seeds, and that was in 1999. So let's go to the 7-10s. All right. Washington State Drake. I got Drake. No, yeah, you got Drake. Okay. Dayton, Nevada. Ooh, I got Nevada. That's 2 10s. We've got Florida, Boise State, Colorado. That's 3 10s. And the 4th one, Texas, Virginia, or Colorado State. I picked Texas. All right, so I got 3 10s. 3 of the 4 I got winning. Let's go to fact number 3. 32 13 seeds have upset 4 seeds since the tournament field expanded. Well, let's look at the 13s over 4s. For the 13 4s, we've got Auburn, Yale, don't see it. Then we've got that would be Alabama and Charleston. Could happen, but I got Alabama. Duke, Vermont. Wouldn't be shocked, actually. But I picked Duke. But that one I would not be shocked if you want to pick one. And then we have the Samford, Kansas. Yes. I had Samford beating Kansas. So I have at least one 13 beating a 4. Number 4 for your key facts, the fourth key fact. Purdue has never made a Final Four under Matt Painter. That is true. The last Final Four was 1980 for Purdue. But I think they're going to get there. So I think that fact will change. And the last one of your 5 key facts about March Madness. Tennessee has never made a Final Four. So something's going to give here because I have a Purdue-Tennessee Elite 8. Either Tennessee will make its first Final Four and Rick Barnes will be there for the second time because he was there with Texas, or Purdue will make its first Final Four under Matt Painter. First one was in 1980. We'll see. That's if it plays out the way I have just sold it to you here on our bracket show. All right, look. You saw it on your screen. You know, I got my bracket here. I filled it out quickly, but I believe in it. And I'm not a big fan of multiple brackets. Don't believe in it. What you do first is what you should stick with, even if it ends up being torched and ripped up a week into the tournament. Follow our tournament coverage throughout the next 3 weeks. Everywhere you can get the Bleacher Report app, NCAA.com, March Madness MBB on our social media accounts. Of course, all the games on CBS, TBS, TNT, and True TV. The Final Four this year is on TBS. Remember that. And it is in Glendale, Arizona. Glendale, Arizona, outside of Phoenix, April 6th and 8th. It's actually pretty late this year. Again, everyone, thanks for joining us here on my bracket prediction show built by Home Depot. Enjoy March Madness.